Slurply diddly do, my G's. So today I thought I'd do a little video about drums and just some sort of inspiration, ideas for drum elements and how to make your drums a bit more vibey just by your sound selection. Because what I've noticed with a lot of my supporters, and bless you guys, I love you all very much, but sometimes the more sort of intermediate producers, there's just, in my opinion, not enough vibe and focus in the drum group often, because a lot of people get really far with like a great kick, great snare, some cool cymbal loops and some hi-hats and things like that, and it sounds great, but it lacks like that vibe, and it has often sometimes like a disconnect because you've got let's take a listen to this loop here, right? Like, it sounds cool and it works and it leaves a lot of space in your mix for other elements in the mid-range, but there's always this sort of disconnect between like when you're designing your own drum groups, when you've got like your kick and your snare and then the hats and cymbals, and that kind of disconnect I'm talking about is it's kind of in the frequency spectrum. If you take a look at span, basically you've got this fat kick, you've got this fat snare down here, and then you've got loads of cymbals, but you haven't really got much going on in the mid-range, And so to me, it always just feels like incomplete, or like there is a bit of a disconnect because the cymbals are like up here, the kick and snare are like down here, and then there's not much to bridge the gap between them in terms of like other sounds. So I always try to like add sounds into my drums that have like mid-range in to like bridge that gap in the spectrum so that the drums will be like full. So it's you have to do it tastefully and well, because obviously if you put loads of mid-range elements in, it's going to start conflicting with your other mid-range elements in your track, like your vocals or your leads or basses and things like that, so you have to be careful about it. But even if you put them in like quite low, and maybe you could do some side chaining on them later, but even if you have some elements in like quite low that have like a mid-range character, it just is going to make your drums feel more connected and more vibey, So I've got 5 ideas for you here today, and these are just the first 5 ideas that I thought of. There's probably actually like 100 different sounds, or actually unlimited amount of sounds that you could use for this. But basically, I just thought like of the first 5 things that came to my head. So number 1 is some ghosts. So you could have ghost kicks, ghost snares. You could make them up out of your own samples, for example. Or what I've done here is I've got like different snares that are different to my main one here, So I just like picked some ghost snares from some different snare samples essentially, and then put them in sort of in the gap. So it starts to because as you see the ghost snares, they sort of have this mid-rangey area that it's a bit higher than my normal snare. They're sort of around like 300 or 400 hertz or so. But they got some mid-range stuff going on, so it's a start. Okay, so putting those in, I left them quite low as well. You can see down here, I've put them really low in the mix. A touch of reverb and a bit of softening the transient to make them quite soft in the mix down. So they just sort of sit in the background a little bit, or in the middle ground, I should say. But that's one. That's super easy. You can always add ghosts in, ghost kicks, ghost snares to fill out a little bit more mid-range in the sort of gaps, Next one is congas. You could obviously use bongos or any other hand drums or something like that. But I just made a little conga loop. Yeah, I just took a little recording of someone playing I think they're congas. There could be some other hand drums. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not an expert on those, but I took the recording. I kind of just loops it a little bit. It has a little bit of graininess and grit in the recording, which I quite like. And then I just sort of placed it around, in a spot where it kind of added a bit of groove, It's a bit like stop-starty, like it doesn't quite flow that well yet, but I'm basically going to be cool and responsing these with the next element. you know. So this is kind of the first part. But as you see again in the congas, they have these like, you know, they're sitting in the mid range, you know. Then that's where I was talking about that disconnect between the low kick and snare and the high cymbals. You know, I'm trying to find elements that live in the mid range to add in, you know. So they live like nicely in the mid range, so they can definitely go in. So now the whole thing so far. Okay, to give them a bit more flow though and a bit more continuity, I've put in these tom rolls next to sort of go after the congas, right? I've done a nasty job at not fading out the clicks properly on this. I thought I'd done that, but perhaps not. It's a little bit better. So, taken from a tom roll, okay, just the recording of of a drummer doing a tom roll, and not using, you know, a full 5 second long tom roll, but just little clips of the tom roll, you know. So it kind of, as you hear, it kind of call and responses nicely with the congas, right? Okay, so let's add that in back into the beat with everything we've got so far. And now these three elements, they're starting to stack up to give us a lot of like mid-range vibe here. Okay, so a lot more going on. Obviously the toms are a bit lower down as well, but they do have a lot of mid-range content in too, you know. So next I've got, this is a really interesting one, and I can't actually tell if it's tap dancing, but it sounds like it to me. Or it's something like that. It could be, I don't know, someone slapping something with their hands as well. I don't know what it is. It was just labeled in my sample folder as percussion 9. But it almost felt like a tap dancing kind of vibe because it's so fast, you know. So I just labeled it tap dance. And that's also really nice. Let's see where that sits. And yeah, you can see here, it's really lovely because it's got this content around like 400 to 800. So that's a great, you know, a great element that fills out the mid-range a bit more there too, right? So all of these mid-range elements together now. Like they do sound a little bit still kind of stop-starty because they're not quite complete yet. But within the context of the drums with the kick and snare and the cymbals, it does feel like very, like it does flow well now, you know? But there's one missing piece that really ties it all together here. And remember, I say that because I've sort of arranged them so that they kind of all fit together, you know. But basically, I wanted to make this video just to give you ideas for elements, you know. So how you arrange it is really up to you, you know. But here are the wood blocks then, the last element. I love these, and they're, yeah, this classic wood block sound, nice amount of low end on them as well. But yeah, you kind of see like you got this lovely sort of 260 hertz hit, and then this second one has a bit more low end, but it also has loads of mid range around 400 to 600 as well. So yeah, I put those in with my sort of mid range elements here. Now it kind of flows even better, right? Those wood blocks sort of help it to like have a more continuous kind of flow. Okay, so back in with the beat then. So they're all lovely elements, and they're all like low enough in the mix and sitting in the mid-range that they're not like really even disturbing anything else in the drums. It's just I've been able to add them in almost for free, you know. Like sure, as I mentioned, that they, you know, some of them might fight a little bit with other elements in your track, like leads or basses or something like that. But that's a job that you could fix with sidechaining or clever composition. But if you do this though, adding in these extra elements in the mid-range to get more vibe, it just makes the drums sound so much more fun and also more connected, you know? So if I sort of play the drums without all of these elements, just the kick, snares and hats, you know? And now adding them all in. Really, really wonderful. And what I could even do to control it even more is I could group all those up and call them like mid drums or something like that. I don't know, whatever you want. And then I could slap a compressor on those, just a bog standard compressor, for example, right? And then we can really like get the compressor working on them. You know, and then we could slap a little bit of reverb on everything as well. A little convolution reverb. One of the ones from the Convolver, maybe a realistic one, like the sort of the small control room. That's quite a nice one. Let's turn the mix back off. So we'll just mix it in about 20% or so. So here I'm mixing down the whole group like even more. So I'm softening it with the compressor and the reverb to push it even further back, you know, so now it's really going to be, you know, even further in the background, everything. And now it's really, you know, not interrupting the kick and snare at all, really, and not really messing with the hi-hats. It's just kind of there, doing its thing behind everything, giving it us like loads more rhythm and vibe, you know, and fullness as well, and connection between the whole drum group, you know. So I've mentioned videos before using Foley sounds, you could do that as well, but here are just like 5 ideas for elements that you can use that are just like classic, you know, drum elements that you can, you know, find in many drum breaks and things that you'll hear things like this, you know. So ghost snares, you could use ghost kicks as well, obviously. Congas or bongos, something like that. Tom rolls, tom one-shots, that kind of stuff. Random human percussion like tap dancing or clapping or stuff like that. Wood blocks as well, great like extra sound. Those are just 5 and there's so many more. Why don't you guys, if any other spring to mind, leave a comment down below which like other element would be a great addition next. And then, yeah, like if you kind of thought of another one, you know, might help someone else out to get inspired to kind of look for more interesting elements for their drums as well, you know. So I love helping you guys out just with inspiration for your tunes. So hopefully this will provide a bit of inspiration, because I just see from the feedback from lessons and feedback live streams and stuff that your drum, like, I'm not speaking to everyone, but to some people, your drums have just like not got enough vibe in them. You know, that's essentially it. They don't have enough of a connection. You're kind of going for the bare bones, the basics, kick, snare, hat kind of stuff. You're not putting enough like flavor into them. So here's like 5 like ways you can start to flavor them up, and just try this on your next project, and you'll have more fun composing when you do stuff like this, you know. So hope that was helpful, my G's. Yeah, big ups. Yeah, leave a comment down below what kind of other elements you could use. Like the video as well if you can. Hit the subscribe button if you're new. Come along and join the channel. And if you guys ever want to check the links in my video descriptions, you can find preset packs for Vital, Serum, Phase Plant and Current. Lots of drum and bass and electronic music sounds in there. You can hit me up for one-on-one mentorship. Book in a lesson via my calendar down below. Email me for mixing and mastering work as well. And finally, come along and join me on Patreon. That's really the back end of my YouTube. It's kind of, well, it's more like the partner of my YouTube channel is my Patreon page, because that's where I can drop like free downloads for you guys to download, and also that's where it's connected to my Discord, which is like my private group where we chat and help each other out, and you can get feedback from other members in there, and also join our feedback live streams and much more. All right, that's it from me today. More from me very soon. Much love.